So I want to begin with a lightning round with Scott Belsky. It's a sort of a Silicon Valley thing, I think, in some cases. So I have a few words, and I'm going to ask Scott to choose which one is Scott Belsky. You ready, Scott? Okay, Here it goes. Okay. I didn't know the answer to this first one, but you know it. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. New York or San Francisco?
Oh, wow. I have to just answer that question?
Well, which one? You got to choose. You got to choose.
At the moment, New York.
At the moment, New York. Good answer. Salad or potato chips?
Salad.
Scott is an investor and on the board of a salad company. No potato chip company?
No, not yet.
No, not yet, not yet. Okay, that'll make it harder. It'll be at this moment. Kickball or soccer?
Soccer.
Soccer, okay. Ooh, it says a lot, doesn't it? Business school or art school?
Art school.
Oh, see that? HBS grad saying art school. Interesting. Okay, this is the easy one. Ready? This is a good one. Oh, I love this one. Museum of Modern Art or Cooper Hewitt?
Cooper Hewitt.
Because Scott is the new president of Cooper Hewitt. Woo!
Yeah. Got some work to do.
Cool, huh?
Imagine if I had answered that question differently.
I know. That'd be a zinger. That'd be technically a zinger, but answered the right way. So Cooper Hewitt, so you know the National Design Museum, the Smithsonian Museum for Design, has been working to become more relevant technologically, and to have Scott as president is a huge message to everyone out there. So
well, you helped inspire me to have the patience to endure board meetings at an old institution that's been around for a century or so.
Well, those are always good meetings.
Yes.
Yes.
Because can I tell this 90-second story? I mean, I went to my first board meeting ever at this museum, and John is on the board. And and coming from the startup world, where everything is about efficiency and productivity and standing meetings where your knees get weak if someone goes on and on about something that doesn't add value, you go into this old institution with a meeting where a lot of the meeting is people talking about other people doing a good job and making sure everyone's name gets in, and there's just a lot of pomp and circumstance compared to what I was used to. And afterwards, walking out, I sort of made this remark to John because he had been president of a university, and how do you put up with this? How do you feel like you're adding value and that you're productive? And John, in his classic Yoda-like way, shared words that then churned in my head for a couple of years after, said to me, Scott, most of these startups that you're involved with or starting or so excited about, they won't be around in 100 years. But this will. And sometimes in life, you look for something where you can just add a brick. And that brick will last. And this is one of those things. And that really inspired me.
So the neat thing about getting older is these opportunities come to you and they seem really boring. But over time, you see how they can have a lasting impression. And just for Scott to be president of the Cooper Hewitt, it's like a dream come true. So, wow, America's okay sometimes. Exactly. All right, so I love how someone also texted me the phone number. So this is like Google. So,
that's also meta.
Excellent, good. Thank you, area code 612. You have better memory than I do. So Scott Belsky is many things. So those of you, so who's ever heard of Scott Belsky? Raise your hand. It's okay, come on. See, Scott, this is opportunity. So Scott Belsky is he's a multi. So I think anyone who is a quote-unquote creative person is a multi. Multi is someone who likes to dabble. Like, who likes to dabble? Come on. There we go. Almost everyone loves to dabble, okay? So Scott's a really good dabbler. Scott has dabbled as an entrepreneur. He's dabbled as an author. He's dabbled as an early stage investor. He's dabbled, but these dabbles are really good dabbles, like capital D dabble. Some people dabble yeah, that was okay, and I dabbled, but Scott's dabbled, and he's dabbled, So as an entrepreneur, you may know this company called Behance. Who knows what Behance is? Yeah, see that? Oh my gosh, look at that. That was a company that Scott created with an amazing team, and he's so quick to always bring up his team. but he achieved the impossible, created a solution to the problem that many of us had to present work easily online in a way that felt authentic. And Scott achieved that at scale, and that company was, as many of you know, acquired by Adobe. He's also an author. Who's been to a 99U conference and or wish they could have gone to one? There we go. See, that's a lot of people. It's a good conference. So Scott also created the 99U conference with another amazing team. And I keep bringing up the team because Scott, as a leader, has really figured out this key secret to achieving scale, which is building a team. And so everything you can look at what Scott's done as an early stage investor to Parpic, Uber, Warby Parker, Pinterest, Periscope, they're examples of his ability to look across and dig in and dabble really hard. So first of all, I want to ask you, going back into your history, you were at this place that everyone kind of hears in the news. It's called Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs. And
I thought there were no zingers in this interview.
No, that's not a zinger. That's like a Wikipedia fact. It's okay. But I love that at Goldman, you were someone who was really interested in the human resources, the human capital aspect, the organization. And you helped to create the Pine Street Leadership Program. Can you talk about usually when you're younger, you don't care about these things as much. Generally speaking, you're kind of not aware as much that there's people around you. Who's had that young person moment? Come on. You weren't aware there were people around you, right? Thank you. Yeah, well, I have no idea there were people around me. Wait a second. And you had that awareness at a younger age. And at Goldman, you thought this was important. What event triggered this?
As an undergrad, I felt like I got more of my education outside the classroom than in the classroom. As an undergrad, I studied business and design. And then in 2001, 2002, when you were looking for an internship, you wanted to go into business, you had to kind of and you also had interest in design, you had to make a choice. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to follow the herd to Wall Street, where people typically cut their teeth in business, was the thought process. I landed at Goldman doing a financial job and realized about a year or so into it, this is not for me. I told my manager, and she said to me, well, if there was one sort of role you would be interested in, what would it be? And I said, well, it would be interesting to learn how a company is run. I didn't know it at the time, but what I was saying was I'm interested in organizational development and leadership development and succession planning. But what I really think I said was it would be cool to be like a fly on the wall and see how the business is run, how problems are solved, and that sort of thing. And so at the time, there was a guy by the name of Steve Kerr who had been working for Jack Welch at GE, who had started the Crotonville Leadership Development Initiative at GE, which is really a world-renowned leadership development institution. And he had been hired by Goldman Sachs to be they called him their chief learning officer, to build a team called Pine Street, which was the street where the firm was founded, to focus on organizational development and how to scale this firm once it was a public company and no longer a partnership. And at the time, Goldman was known for developing leaders, and the idea of being the youngest person on the team was really exciting to me. So it ended up being actually an incredible 3+ year journey in how co-heads of teams get along, how succession planning is done in terms of finding out who's going to be the next leader of different teams, how clients can be better organized. And I feel like one of the things that I think was really interesting in that job was I think I was one of the only people in the firm that had a license for Adobe Illustrator and the Creative Suite, because I was just using this graphic representation of, I remember when Hank Paulson, who was the CEO at the time, was doing this thing called the Leadership Compass, which was intended to help people make better decisions. And he made it using an Excel spreadsheet. And I said, let me try that. And so I used Illustrator to make this thing, and he ended up using this as the thing that every partner went through in this training. And it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, design is such an incredible tool to help a company be better organized. And it certainly had a big part of the idea behind Behance.
Oh, wow. Who had that moment that moment where Scott had a boss who pointed Scott in a different direction? Who felt that same moment in their life? Did you feel it? It's a good moment to relive, because sometimes you're lucky to have that. One of my favorite phrases from a friend is, you don't choose a job, you choose a boss. So, thank you, Scott. I'm Eric code 952. With any great idea comes foundation steps to bring to life. What are your basic approaches to give birth without the pain and heavy breathing that normally comes with a startup? Heavy breathing.
Well, I think part of it is that you actually forget how hard it was. So later on, when you think about doing it again, you're like, oh, that was fun. And I imagine, conception and birth probably have similar concepts. But I think that, to me, I get incredibly frustrated when there is an idea for something, whether it's a new business, but more regularly like something I want to do within a business I'm in, or even a company that I'm involved with. I get very frustrated when there's an idea and I don't see any like action happening around it, or I don't see it captured, or I don't see a system to make sure that you come back to it. I don't see a system to make sure that you come back to it again and again if you can't do it now. I get very frustrated when there's no automated in-mind, insight, action sort of programming around it. And I mean, one of the things that I think I would annoy members of my team with is when things would come up in a meeting or a brainstorm and it wasn't the right time or place to discuss it, I would always say, like, who captured that? Who's on this? Who's going to bring it up? And people would be like, I don't know, like who? And it was sort of annoying. But it was my only way of being able to then proceed. And I feel like when you have something new that you're building, it is all, it sounds cliche at this point, but it all is, little iterative, consistent, persistent actions around it. And as soon as you stop doing those things, it goes nowhere. But if you continue doing it, it will go somewhere. Now, it will go either to a place where you start to lose conviction around it, in which case you also must be able to kill it. I think oftentimes people feel like when they pursue something far enough, they have to continue with it, even if they feel less conviction for where it's going. But if you continue with it and you feel as much, if not more conviction, you just have to then use that forward momentum to get more people involved and to stick with it longer and to kill other things in your life to give it the energy it needs.
Area code 909525 is getting a lot of value in this session. Second question. Question to Jewel, now question to Scott.
Do SMS charges apply?
That's a good one. Maybe this is going to cost... No, don't worry. It's okay. Area code 909, what is your recipe for building a good team?
I don't know. There's so many places we could go with this. One of the things I actually do tell a lot of startups, when you ask people, oh, how's it going? And they're like, oh, it's great. It's 90% a lie, right? They usually have not found product market fit. They have not built a scalable business. They certainly haven't built a profitable business. They haven't protected their market. There are a lot of things that they haven't figured out yet. But I do believe the one real great measure of a team in its early phases is the type of team it's able to attract. If you continue to attract really good people and you're retaining those people, that's such a great metric that you can actually measure to some extent. And if you're not, I think that's a real negative indicator of where the startup is going. And so really what builds a great team is the team, is what you're selling. And I feel like one of the things I do a lot of is selling new members to join teams that I'm involved with. And the two things I'm always leading with are, one, the types of people you will be able to work with and what you'll be able to learn from them and what their superpowers are that you're going to benefit from. And then the second thing is the vision. And it's actually, I don't believe that actually a vision is what keeps people engaged with a long-term pursuit over time. I feel like the need for short-term rewards kicks in pretty quickly, and you need to feel progress on a daily or monthly basis. However, when you're closing somebody on joining a team, vision works. Because it's an irrational moment where they're willing to make a major career choice based on something that may happen 5 or 10 years from now. And so when you're building a team, it's really about the types of people that you're joining and the vision that you're buying into. And then I also always make the case about the worst possible outcome. I like to always talk about with people that are joining a team, and I think about this myself, what's the worst case scenario here? Is that I end up meeting a lot of very talented people that I build relationships with that are likely going to be a part of my next project. I will have made some sort of salary, and so I will probably be better off than I am now, even if this goes sideways for the next year or two and I move on and do something different. And so I think you also have to make that case to people that are joining you. It's like, hey, worst case scenario, here's what you're going to learn, here's who you're going to meet, and here's what you're likely going to be able to do next that you can't do now.
You've also answered Eric code 480 a little bit here. So 480 gave their name away from Eric. Where are you, Eric? From Eric, my question is, what kinds of businesses are you compelled to invest in? And are there specific qualities you look for in who you partner with?
So when I'm looking as an investor, I'm looking in the overlap of a few different things. I'm looking in the overlap of companies that are not only design driven, but are playing in what I like to call the interface layer. You know, one of my big thesis, I think, in technology these days is that the interfaces that a lot of you are building are going to disintermediate a lot of the technology underneath. And as we all know, technology, especially these days, succeeds not because of the underlying technology as much as the user's experience of the technology. And I think we're going to get to a day where we start to say, I need a car, or I want to buy this, or I want to do this. And there are going to be a lot of underlying services competing underneath to be the default in the interface that you're using to provide that service. And so in some ways, all these great, cool technologies driven by all this intelligence are going to be commoditized by what you create, which is the interface itself. And so I feel like investing in teams that are either design-founded or design-driven in that way are going to have a really big competitive advantage in this future of interface-driven technologies. I like to invest in teams that have leaders that want to learn as much as listen. One of my biggest litmus tests for a team is whether each conversation I have with them is a step function more interesting than the one before it. Sometimes you meet with people where it feels like the same conversation with like a slight iteration. And some people it's like, whoa, this is a step function better than the one before. This is that much more interesting. And that's something I look for in a team. And then finally for products, you know, I love marketplace products. I love products that have network effects. And I also love products that I personally get super excited about and feel like there's a whole new possible world. I mean, remember when I first talked to Jewel, it was like, oh wow, like why are there massive inventories of parts that people probably don't use, and why can't you just get a part on demand, and why is it so hard to find a part? I mean, it just sort of made sense, and it's like one of those things where like this product needs to exist. I think you look for that.
Area code 415 question is, how do you make sure this great team is diverse?
I mean, what is diversity at the end of the day? I think it's much more than just biological checkboxes. It's really a lot of different people thinking very differently. I think what we've all learned about innovation is that it tends to happen at the edge of reason, where if everyone's completely reasonable in a room, coming from the same background with the same education and the same experiences, then it's a very reasonable outcome that's in the center of what everyone already is familiar with. You know, there's no new terrain being explored. There's no mistakes of the eye that bring you to a new place. There's no like edge that becomes the center. But when you have a group of people that are very different, and that's made possible, more likely at least, from different backgrounds, from different genders and races and whatever else, I think that that's how you kind of stack the deck in your favor for having people see things differently. Then you have a better chance as a team, I think, of innovating at the edge of reason. Someone says something that initially sounds different to you, but then you explore it, and then you realize, oh, wait, this is a completely different way of approaching this. And that doesn't only happen in like the type of product or design solution to a problem, it also happens in marketing and in communications and the way that you describe a business. And actually one of my conspiracy theories as to why big companies hire creative agencies so often is because they actually have to hire like a diverse, different team to actually create a message that's compelling. They can't do it internally because they're almost too similar. And I think that's one of the things that, so if diversity is important in the world, it's most important in the creative world, because it's our job to get people to think differently and to see the future. And so we have to stack the deck in our favor.
How do you keep the psychology of new customers fresh in your mind when your team has become intensely familiar with a product or experience?
Yeah, so, all right. The point about the lazy, vain, and selfish, which bleeds into this, is that we have too much faith in our customers or users or clients in their first experience with us. We believe that they are going to make the investment of the time and energy to understand what we're all about. If we're a small company with a big vision, we expect that they will buy into that vision and the altruistic nature of what we hope to achieve for them and for the world and everything else. But I think in truth, in our world where we're constantly being bombarded by stuff that gets us to buy things or do things when we're pressed for time, we have barely enough time for our family and our passions and our hobbies and everything else, we have this shell that makes us extraordinarily skeptical, lazy in the sense we don't want to take time to learn something, vain in the sense that if we do something new, it better make us look good and quickly, and selfish in the sense that it better serve a need of ours quickly before any sort of long-term promise that we would have to invest in over time. And so in order to get people through that shell or that first mile of the customer experience, we have to gear towards those tendencies that we have, those very natural resisting tendencies that we have. How do you do that? You build a hook. And the hook is through a promise, right? Oftentimes for developer tools like Stripe or whatever, it's like, do 2 lines of code and have your payments up and running. And then so developers in the first mile, lazy, vain, and selfish are like, well, this will achieve it in super small amount of time. This will make me look really good in front of my peers quickly. And selfishly, I can just do this myself. And so they engage, right? And that's sometimes a better way to engage in the first mile. And I think we see this in every great product or service we use. Now, what we also see is that one of my favorite ways of thinking about products is that users flock to simple products, right? When they have a very complicated solution they're using and they see a new way of doing something that's simpler, they flock to it. And then that company starts to take its customers for granted over time and starts to add features for power users until the users flock to a simple product. And this is like the life cycle of the product world. And in order to transcend that, not only do you have to understand and pull people through that first mile that we just discussed, but you also have to always, you have to constantly kind of ground yourself by realizing that every new cohort of new users is different. The new users that you have I think Twitter is a perfect example of where this went wrong. Twitter made a great first-time user experience for approximately 150 million people in the world who are willing to go through and build their own lists and invest in their product in that way. But then beyond that, new cohorts of new users that would now join Twitter have no interest in doing the curating of the people that they would follow. They just want to follow a topic, and they have no concern about that. And so the perfect first mile experience for the first cohort of new users became the absolute wrong experience for the next cohort of new users. And so what I say to teams is that they always have to invest a really good amount of time, maybe up to 50% of the time in the design process on rethinking the onboarding. Even once it's working, you still have to rethink it and redo it.
Area code 6765. Do you seek out differing views, devil's advocates in teams?
I do, and I also try to play like the contrarian view to myself as well. It's very grounding when you get super excited. I mean, I think one of my weaknesses is I get very excited about a direction. And then I start to push forward and I start to insist on us taking action on it and whatever. And sometimes I don't stop and play the contrarian to myself and also engage enough of the contrarian view for my team. And so what I've tried to do lately in recent years is pose questions like, what do you think we're missing? Like if anyone had to guess what we are completely missing right now, let's play it out. And let's kind of, for the moment, let's switch the debate. I think it's such a great exercise. And it's one of those exercises that's harder the more passionate you are about a solution. The other thing that I think we all have to do more is question that statement that passion should drive the decisions we make as designers versus empathy. I think that a lot of, too many products and solutions are made out of becoming very passionate about a solution versus always seeking and grounding yourself with empathy with the customer suffering the problem. And I think this is what Silicon Valley, by the way, is very guilty of, is a lot of people will create a solution especially on the B2B side, where you'll create a solution for handymen or for house cleaners or for whatever, but you will not like actually put yourself in the shoes of these people on a daily basis and actually get in touch with what they're struggling with. And then the product is something completely different than what they actually would use.
Because I'm too busy to do that work of understanding their problem.
Right.
Or re-empathize. Don't you know I'm really busy? I'm really busy, so someone figured that out for me. It just happens, right?
And also, just to say it a little differently, there's a sense of I shouldn't do anything that's not scalable. So I should only focus on things that are scalable. And one of the guys I worked with at Benchmark, Bill Gurley, an investor, always liked to say that the most remarkable teams do something that, or the best teams do remarkably unscalable things in the beginning of their products. They will do things like actually just go and do the house cleaning themselves with the crew to actually really understand, what the product needs to be. I always like to remind teams when I work with them, stop trying to hide behind computer screens, finding scalable solutions to everything. Get in the ground and get on the ground and do things with your sleeves rolled up that are not scalable at first, just to really get a sense of what you're actually trying to achieve.
That's good stuff. Isn't it much better to listen to someone and have questions answered instead of read a Medium post? We created a space of questions together. Said, audience, come on, you did it. Come on, applaud for yourself. Come on. It's a good moment.